It just happened last night. And to be honest, I'm still a little shaken up about it. I'll try to retell the story exactly as it happened, but my fear has probably jogged my memory a bit. I work evenings as a dispatcher in a mid-sized Midwestern city. I was driving home at 2 in the morning when I stopped for gas. In retrospect, I can say it was stupid to stop at all. The gas station was poorly lit and completely empty. But I knew the shady areas of my town, and this was usually not one of them. As I pumped gas, I noticed a middle-aged woman sitting on the curb across the parking lot. The night was cold, and it had just started raining. The woman was not wearing clothes appropriate for the weather, so she was soaking wet. When the woman saw me watching her, she called out to me from across the parking lot. My second of many stupid decisions that evening was the decision to engage in conversation with her. I was worried about her, so I approached her to see what help I could offer her. "Hi beautiful, I'm just trying to get home, but no one is helping me," she said. "I'm trying to get away but a cab ride costs $60 and I only have $40, can you help me?" I don't usually give money to passers-by, but this woman seemed sincere. The weather was terrible, and my job involves helping people. So I said yes. I told her I didn't have any cash, but if she came inside with me, I would withdraw money from the ATM and give her a few dollars. But the ATM wasn't working. I apologized and told her there was nothing else I could do to help her. She followed me outside and chatted with me nonstop while I opened the driver's door to get into my car. And then she got into my car. I was too shocked to say anything. I sat there staring at her while she buckled up in the passenger seat. As soon as she got into my car, her demeanor completely changed. She no longer seemed as alert as she had before. She was extremely agitated and restless. "Just take me to my aunt's house," she said. "She can give me money." Of course, alarm bells started ringing in my head, though my first instinct was to tell her to get the hell out of my car. My intuition tells me that would be dangerous. She's already proven herself to be unpredictable. It looked like she was high, and I wasn't sure if she had a weapon on her to force her out of my car. I thought it might cause a violent reaction. "Where are you asking me to take you?" I finally said. "Just start driving and I'll tell you where to turn. No, if you want me to consider taking you somewhere, I need you to tell me where we are going." I said this without the slightest intention of taking her anywhere. "Don't worry, darling, I'm not a bad person. I'm not gonna rob you or anything. Just drive." "No." I said it again. "What's your aunt's address?" Okay, it's down the street. What's the house number?" While I was asking questions, she got really excited. We still hadn't left the gas station parking lot. I thought about getting out of the car and going to the gas station for help. But A, she didn't seem to show any friendliness to whoever was inside when I was trying to get money. And B, I wasn't about to leave her alone in my car. Eventually she jumped on me and said, "Why are you asking me so many questions? I thought we were friends. Do you not trust me? Is it because I'm black? I work for the police department." I said it's my job to ask these questions. She freaked out. She started yelling at me that I was a snitch, that I was trying to get her in trouble and generally freaking crazy. At this point I was more scared than ever. I just wanted her to go away. But my instincts told me that asking her to get out of the car wasn't going to work, so I decided to take my chances. "I'm not a police officer. I just work for the police department. Why don't I take you to Walmart and see if they have the right item?" My idea was to get her out of the car as calmly as possible, and then lose her in the store. She liked my idea and immediately calmed down. I realized that riding in a car with this woman was incredibly risky, but at that moment it seemed like the best thing to do. Her thoughts were erratic, jumping in all directions. Sometimes she seemed to have trouble following through. One thought, but that's roughly how our conversation went. "I'm glad we're friends now. There are 5 or 6 people trying to get me. I'll come to your work tomorrow and we can arrest them together." "That's good. We can talk about it tomorrow." "What about today? Didn't you say you were trying to get home?" "Yes, honey, I'm trying to get to Town B." "Town B? I thought you said you were going to town." Yeah, the city, yeah, that's exactly what I meant. That's why the cab ride is $40. It's a long way. A cab ride costs $40, yeah, baby. You said you had $40? I do, baby, I got $40. But a cab ride costs $60. I'm just not talking. Are you sure you can't take me to my aunt's? She lives nearby, on B Street. I thought you just said she lived on the street. What's that? No, baby, I meant B Street, but it doesn't matter because she won't give me any money anyway. Are you sure you can't just take me to town, eh? It was horribly obvious that this woman was talking complete nonsense because the details of her story kept changing. When we pulled into the Walmart parking lot, she finally got out of my car and followed me into the store. I told her that before we went looking for an ATM, I needed to use the restroom. I had planned to call the police while in the store, but she followed me into the bathroom. And that's when things got really weird. She grabbed my hand and whispered in my ear, "If you don't have any money to give me, that's okay, but let me ask you something, honey. How do you feel about me touching your pussy?" I forcefully told her no. I ran into the stall and locked the door as fast as I could. As soon as there was a barrier between us, I said, "You know, I have friends in the police department who might be able to help you better than I can. I'll just call them and we can work things out together." At the mention of a police officer, she started yelling at me. I kept repeating that the police would help her. She threw me that she was going to leave and jumped out of the bathroom. But that wasn't the end of it. I waited to make sure she was really gone. And sure enough, not 60 seconds after she left, she came back into the bathroom and started banging on the stall door. And said something that scared me more than anything else. "Hey, come with me to the car. I left my beer in your car." No, I saw her get into my car and she had nothing with her but the clothes on her back. After that, she left the bathroom again and never came back. I waited about 5 minutes before leaving the restroom. I immediately found a manager who called the police for me. Luckily, the police were in a different neighborhood than the one I work in, because I was shocked at how stupid I had acted all night. And probably would have died of embarrassment if any of my coworkers had responded. The officer who arrived took my statement and advised me to be more careful from now on. He said that beggars sometimes become violent, and that just recently there had been a report that a woman fitting my description had attacked a Good Samaritan who had stopped to try to help her. I definitely learned the lesson of stranger in peril, and I was lucky to escape unharmed. I'm glad my stupidity didn't get me killed. So read it the next time you try to help a stranger late at night, but don't do it. I'm a freshman at a college in the South. I'm also a woman. Before I begin this story, I'd like to describe myself. I am a short, chubby black woman. When I say short, I consider my height to be just below average, 5 feet 4 inches. Anyway, my college was across the street from a rundown gas station where I happened to be the night I worked. My boss left me alone that night because he didn't get enough sleep. Or so he said. But it was a pretty slow day. There was no particular reason why it was slow. It just was. Anyway, sitting at the counter, I was playing Geometry Dash on my phone. This wasn't a counter with thick glass and a talking tube. It was just a regular counter. While I was playing my game, I heard the door open with a little jingle of bells. Looking up, I saw a man of average height, very thin, but somehow a little intimidating. I'd never been afraid of anyone. So when I say he was intimidating, he was. He was bald, with a small comb-over. He was wearing a dirty white t-shirt with holes in it, and dad jeans covered in a dark red substance and dirt. He looked like he had just gone hunting, but I wasn't sure. He looked up at me. His eyes were blank and empty. But I smiled anyway and said, "Hey, how's it going?" Typical Southern hospitality. He muttered something I couldn't hear and went to the back of the store. I watched him for a while, but eventually I got bored and went back to my game. After about a minute of agony, I turned the game off and went to scrolling through Instagram. When I looked up, he was standing across the aisle just watching me. Reflexively, I lowered my head and looked at my phone. But something told me to look up again. When I did, he was standing at the counter with gummy worms and a can of beer. "Did you find everything all right, sir?" I said I was a little scared, but everything was fine. He didn't say anything. He just dug through his pockets and pulled out a dirty $10 bill. "Just 5, sir." I took the money and smiled at him. After I gave him back his change. Out of nowhere, he yelled, "I hate all you blacks and goddamn Mexicans." Stunned by his comment, I couldn't say anything. I was just stunned. "Oh, you don't have anything to say, do you? You blacks always have something to say. You never know when to shut your fucking mouth. I swear to God, if I could hang you, I would." I choked. I was about to tell him to get his worms and a can of beer and get the fuck out. But then a few college guys burst through the goddamn door, alerting us both. He grabbed his shit and walked out. Luckily, I knew that one of the college students was an acquaintance of mine. "Hi." He smiled, bringing me some Doritos and an Arizona iced tea. I think he realized from the look on my face how I was feeling. "Are you okay?" he asked. "No, the man who came out said he wanted to hang me. He started in with racist comments. I didn't even do anything. I told him I wasn't crying. I was just really angry." My friend asked me if he should go look for him, and I told him no. "I'll be fine," I assured him. He nodded and asked me for a pen and paper. I tore off a piece of paper and handed him the pen. "Okay, call me if you need me," he said, writing down his phone number. His other friends came over with a bunch of food, and after that they hit the road. About 2 hours later, my boss and another coworker showed up, which meant I was free to go. I gathered my thanks, forgetting the whole incident, and wished them a good day. I left, and started my way across the street. After walking for about a kilometer, I heard someone shout, "Hey sir, do you have a reason to be here tonight?" When I looked back, I saw campus security talking to a lanky man. My eyes began to focus in the darkness when I noticed it was the racist guy from the gas station. His eyes were fixed on me, and it made me even more uncomfortable. He didn't say anything back, which made it threatening enough for me to walk away. I started walking faster towards my dorm and just forgot about the whole thing. He was calm. I was fine. Nothing else happened. The next day at Union Center, I was doing my homework at my desk and listening to music when a guy I knew came over to me. "Hi, I'm glad you're back, okay?" He smiled, and I nodded. "Yeah, thanks." He sighed because they found some guy on campus last night with a gun and a hunting knife. My stomach churned when he said it was a skinny white male, and he kept muttering some racist bullshit under his breath. "And I thought it was the guy you told me about last night." He was done. I told him I thought it was, and that he had followed me to my dorm last night, since I thought he was stunned too. That too, asshole, racist, idiot, weirdo. I really hope I'm lucky enough to never run into you again. Last night, around 8 o'clock, I was walking with my friend Sally about a mile to the nearest cafe. Both girls are in their early 20s, and neither of us have cars of our own. And Sally didn't have an Opel card. So walking was our only option this summer. So it was still fairly well lit, and we were walking on the main road, so we weren't too worried. Finally we got to a cafe and sat down. I was going to pay, but I only had a credit card, and of course only cash. Sally was on the phone when I got back from the counter, so I just gestured for her to stay put and guard the place while I went to withdraw the money. This is my home suburb, so I know there are no ATMs here, and my best bet is a gas station a block away. I'm taking a light jog so I don't keep Sally waiting when a balding, sweating guy, probably in his 40s, wearing a tank top and no shoes, steps behind me as I pass the corner of the block. He walked behind me for about 100 meters. I didn't pay much attention to it. The gas station was the next building over, and it looked like he had just stepped out of a nice suburban home on that street. Besides, it wasn't witching hour, so I figured he was on his way to the station, as I was. As I entered the tiny store, he didn't even cross my mind or follow me. In my peripheral vision, I saw him walk past the door and out of sight. I looked around for the ATM machine that was sometimes inside. No luck. So I approached the man in his 30s behind the counter and reluctantly asked if I can withdraw cash from them. He smiles and says, "Sure." Then he asks, "Is he with you?" I didn't realize at first who he was talking about. And then he points to the man who had been loitering outside the store earlier. Mind you, he didn't look threatening. He wasn't pacing back and forth right outside the door. He was moving aimlessly in the space from the sidewalk and gas station to the store windows. I figured he was on drugs. I told the clerk. "No, I didn't think about that at all." And he says, "Oh, right, he was looking at you earlier. I thought he might have been your father." I laughed. To be honest, I wasn't worried at all. He was still wandering around, and I couldn't imagine him getting hung up on anything. I thanked the salesman for the money, but before I turn away to leave, he says, "Just wait and see if he leaves first." We wait in silence for a few minutes, and the guy starts strutting back and forth right along the front wall of the store, looking straight ahead and not entering the store. It looked like he was just strolling around under the influence of drugs and seemed harmless. I didn't catch his eye once, so I decided it would be safe to just slip out the door and back into the cafe in the fairly bright light of dusk. Especially since Sally was texting me at this point, asking, "Where are you?" I thank the guy behind the counter again for his concern, assure him that I don't know the guy and I'm not involved in some weird scheme to rob the store. And then I head for the door. The clerk asks if I'd like him to walk me out, and I reply that I'll be fine and start walking away towards the block, exiting the store. The drifting man stops pacing and heads towards me from the other end of the building. I hadn't thought much of this guy until that moment, but for the first time he was briskly striding toward me in a straight line. The hairs on the back of my neck stand up and I start walking so that he doesn't think I'm actively trying to get away from him, still trying to convince myself that I'm just being paranoid and should act more casual. I don't look back to see how close he is. I've already made it to the sidewalk on the other side of the gas stations. When I heard the clerk run outside, he's yelling at me, "Run!" I rush to run, looking over my shoulder. He grabs the man's shoulder from behind. The balding man doesn't even look back or try to break free. He just watches me run away. And that's where the story ends. I keep running until I cross the road and then turn around and stand still. The clerk is still holding on to the strange man. The clerk and I just look at each other in bewilderment, not knowing what to do. He makes a gesture with his hand for me to leave, and I gesture my thanks to him. I went back to Sally's with the money and bought some food, then went home the other way. I recently drove from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, to Buffalo, New York, with my cat. It was a long trip, but for the most part we drove with a decent amount of time to spare. She and I got up just before we entered New York City. It was about 5:30 p.m., but that also meant it was pitch black outside. We only stopped once to grab a bite to eat at McDonald's, and I quickly drank their iced tea to try to stay awake. I definitely needed to use the restroom. I didn't want to leave the cat in the car, so I put early Sean in and we pulled into a gas station. I asked, "Do you mind if we use the restroom here?" The man behind the counter replied, "Sure." So she and I went into the restroom. She sat on the counter while I did my business. The store wasn't empty, and there were a few guys around looking for honey buns. Delicious pastries and cigarettes cheaper than in New York. There was a woman up front talking to the salesman. She was probably a regular customer, judging by the fact that they knew each other. I jumped a foot, and when we heard the doorknob bang, I laughed and said, "Sorry, it's busy right now." My cat is a trained animal. She is trained to handle people, stimulating situations, crowds, and relatively loud noises. I looked at her after the jump, her tail as full as it could be, and she lowered herself and slid into her favorite position on my shoulders. She dug her claws into my hair and let out her grunt that she does when she wants to be taken outside. The doorknob jingled again, and she reached for the door, quickly, as if striking a blow. She was still busy. I called out to her, but this time I didn't laugh. Then we heard someone's voice. It was a male voice, and honestly it made my blood run cold in my veins. They were speaking in a language that was a cousin of my mother tongue. They were saying, "Should I grab her when she comes out?" And in my mother tongue, grab doesn't have as many meanings as it does in English. They used something that was like grab, as far as I could tell, through the door. "No, the cashier is right there, we can go stand outside. I think her car is blue." My cat made an angry grunting sound, and I tried to reassure her that this bathroom has no windows and my car is parked unreasonably on the edge of the lot. I parked it a little away from the streetlights because it had a lot of stuff in it, and I didn't want them lit up. It wasn't a blue car. We heard distant footsteps and sat like that for what seemed like a very long time. We both jumped up when we heard a knock on the door, and quickly got out, and my girlfriend walked you through the back door to the car. They're standing outside Palms. Behind the counter sat a guy I took for a regular. I opened the door, and she showed me to the backyard. She opened the door, and I saw my car about 20 feet away. I wanted to run, but I remembered I was using my key to put the car on the alarm. I unlocked the car with the keys and the alarm went off. I rushed to the driver's seat, unlocked the car with the key and quickly pushed the button to lock it again. Hard hammering in my throat, I put the car in reverse and got the hell out of there. On the way out, I noticed the guy standing by a blue car on the other side of the parking lot trying to nonchalantly smoke. They didn't even know I was out. This happened a couple months ago. My husband and I live in Everett, Washington, just north of Seattle. It was probably around 8 p.m. when my husband decided to take the car and fill it up at the gas station closest to our house. Nothing abnormal about that. And I decided to stay home with our then 4-month-old baby. My husband was gone for quite some time and I, as always, started to get nervous. Most women think their man is cheating or something, but I'm always sure he's dead or really hurt. But I couldn't call him because I saw that he forgot his phone at home. He ends up coming home in a panic. He's always playing macho. Nothing can hurt me. But this time he was visibly shaken and terrified. That's when he explained what happened. He pulled up to the gas station when they were already closing up store there, and noticed a strange guy lingering nearby, of course thinking he was invincible. He decided to get gas anyway, because he doesn't feel like he has to leave just because there's a creepy guy here. A creepy guy who was shaking and had his hand in his pocket approached him. He started by mentioning that my husband must be doing well since he drives a Lexus. He then told my husband that he needed a ride to the wooded area up the road from the gas station because his car had broken down, and he needed to get back to it because he was a pastor at a Korean church. My husband immediately looked at this guy skeptically, given his appearance and the fact that he was clearly Caucasian. So my husband told him, "No, it's just up the road, just walk around." The guy kept begging and my husband stood his ground. The creepy guy then asked if he could borrow my husband's cell phone to make a call, to which my husband replied that he forgot his phone at home. This was true, but the guy didn't believe him and challenged him, asking, "Then what's in your left pocket?" To which my husband replied that he had his keys. Then he asked about the right pocket, and my husband replied that my gun was in it. The guy laughed, not believing my husband. My husband is 23 years old and Chinese, so he looked very young and vulnerable. The guy again asked for a ride and my husband again declined as he was finishing getting gas. The creepy guy walked to the other side of the car and tried to open it to get in. My husband asked him what the hell he was doing and told him to back off. That's when the guy started looming over my husband, holding something in his pocket. That's when my husband made the decision to pull out his gun and point it at the guy. The guy immediately stopped, put his hands up and slowly backed away while my husband told him to get away. What struck me the most was what the man said. "You are a very smart man, good for you." And he continued to back away slowly. My husband left with his gun aimed the whole time. I'm so thankful I stayed home with our daughter. And now I get extra paranoid when he's a little late. I'm not sure if the guy wanted to rob my husband or steal a car, but now he's going through drug withdrawal or something, and his last words only confirm that he's up to no good. This happened about a month ago, and I just need to vent. I recently moved out of my parents' house and into a tiny apartment in a tiny rural town that is 3 hours away. I was leaving for the weekend and was driving home Sunday night when I decided to get gas at a gas station a block from my house. It was dark, but the gas station was fairly well lit. On my way to the gas station, I passed a man on a bicycle, and as I poured gasoline into the pumps, I realized he was riding behind me. It wasn't alarming yet. The store attached to the gas station offers snacks and movie rentals for the small town folks. When I enter the store to pay cash for gas, I hold the door open for a bicyclist. He gives me a very intense look in the eye, but passes inside and goes to browse the snacks. I pay the clerk and go back to my car to start pumping gas while I adjust the nozzle and just stand there waiting for my tank to fill up. I got that crawling sensation you get when someone is watching you. I turned to look around the parking lot. A cyclist was standing in the shadows next to the gas station, right by his bike, looking at me. I was immediately struck with a chill, and I hurried to finish the transaction. I was supposed to get change from the money I had given the salesman for the gasoline. So I went back to the store, hoping that when I came out he would be gone. However, he had also entered the store right after me and was now ostentatiously looking at the newspaper by the door. I got my change and decided to just sit in the store, hoping that he would get bored and leave. I don't know why I didn't tell the clerk I was being followed, but I spent about 15 minutes just walking up and down the aisles looking at bags of chips and random snacks. Finally, I decided it was okay to leave. I didn't see him anywhere. I walk out the door and manage to take a few steps to the parking lot when I hear a door open behind me. When I look back, I recognize the cyclist and rush to my car, hurrying to get in, start it, buckle up, and put my change away. I see him standing in the alley next to the store, hurrying to get on his bike. In the end, I just threw everything on the passenger seat and rode out of the gas station as fast as I could. I have to say that I had only moved here a month ago and didn't know the area very well, besides the fact that I needed to get to my apartment, and I have a bright red car with out-of-state license plates that are conspicuous in this tiny town. I realized that he absolutely saw exactly which direction I was headed and could have easily just driven by and seen my car parked outside my apartment. In a panic, I parked in the parking lot in front of my house and waited for my heart to stop pounding. I stood there for about 2 minutes before I realized he could see me there just as easily, walked over to the parked car and knocked. I was so scared. I ended up riding for 15 to 20 minutes until I found the police station and waited for them to come out and talk to me in the parking lot. The bicyclist has never been on the police's radar, but I do see him riding down Main Street occasionally. I live about 20 miles from the town I work in. I live outside of town, and there is a highway within walking distance of my house and a 24-hour gas station on the corner. Last week, on a Saturday night, I went in there just before midnight to buy some Cajun-style peanuts. I saw one car parked on the curb, which is pretty normal. Usually there's just a guy working there and rarely any customers at that time. Have you ever felt that dread overpowering you, like you know something is wrong? So, I walk into the store and I don't see anyone, not behind the counter or in the store. So I take my time and assume they are in the restroom or have retreated to the back of the store. They must have heard the doorbell ring when I walked in. I feel weird and uncomfortable, so I wait a minute. Although it seemed like an eternity to me. So I call out, "Hello, is anyone there?" After waiting another minute, I put down the peanuts and head out the door. I look around the car parked on the curb and find nothing alarming. I even looked in the back of the store, but there were no bodies there. I felt uneasy and called the police. They arrive about 10 to 15 minutes later and search the premises. They find the cashier dead in the men's restroom, beaten to death. They called for backup, asked me to tell them what I had experienced, and then I went home. And that's not the fucking worst part. I get home and my dog is in the front yard peeing and just looking at me and the front door is open. My heart is racing, so I grab the dog, go back to the gas station and notify the police. They send one of the guys to search my house. Nothing stolen, nothing in place, but there are signs of forced entry. Then last weekend, about 5 hours ago, I get a call from my brother who works for the county sheriff's office. Supposedly they have reviewed the security footage, and about 10 minutes before I entered the store, someone came in, started punching the cashier, and then dragged him into the restroom. The footage shows me entering the store, looking around and calling out to someone. You then see me come out, check my car, walk to my vehicle and make a call. The alleged killer exits the bathroom and sneaks out the back door. And before he leaves the view of the camera, he takes off in the general direction of my house. Luckily, my wife was with friends and watching Beauty and the Beast. But I'm convinced that I missed the killer at the gas station and that he broke into my house. I installed a new security system and a new front door this week. But I'm convinced that whoever did this is still out there somewhere.